Everything in Illustrator is made from shapes and paths. So you can take any image and break it down into the component shapes, outline them and recolour them. Something like the plant pot is really just a collection of circles with some joining lines. Same for the leaves. And the pizza as well, it's a triangle, a rectangle and some circles. So all these things are just made out of shapes and then they're put together. And that's what we're going to look at today. So with Illustrator open, choose Create New. And choose an A4 page. You may want to turn the orientation to landscape so that it fits nicely on your screen. There are lots of different workspaces in Illustrator, so I'm just going to make sure you're working from the same workspace as I am looking at here. If you go to Window, Workspace and choose Essentials Classic, that will give you this workspace here with the options bar and the double toolbar down the side. You will also need the Layers and Properties panel out, so if that's not there for you, just go to Window and turn on the Layers, Window and turn on the Properties. So for this task we're going to use a reference image. And the reference image is a JPEG image. It's the pizzaphoto.jpg. If you opened this directly as an Illustrator image, you would get a really weird workspace suitable only for web print. And we don't want that, we want a full colour workspace. So I'm just going to drag it straight in. So what I've got now is my new document with my reference image dragged in. If I look in the Layers panel, there's my reference image. And I can see that that's there, and I can lock that layer by clicking in the space next to the eye icon. I can also turn off visibility. So I'm going to lock that so that I can't move it around when I'm drawing over it. And at the bottom of the Layers panel, I'm going to click on the Create New Layer icon. And that's given me a new layer to work on. So all these things are going to be made of shapes and paths. I'm going to start by looking at the toolbar and using the rectangle tool. If I right click on the rectangle tool, there are some other tools underneath, and one of those is the polygon tool, and I'm just going to choose that. And then I'm going to click once on my workspace. Now it's brought up this box of options here, and I'm going to make a triangle for my pizza, so I'm just going to drop the sides down to 3 and ignore the radius because we'll change the size in a minute. So 3 sides, okay. And here's my triangle. And I can hover over the side of that now, and I can scale it up and down as I want to. If I hold Shift, it will scale proportionally. I can also rotate it by hanging around the edge there till I get the little triangle mark. If I choose the black selection tool arrow, so that's V on the keyboard, and hover in the middle, I'll get a little square shape, square icon comes up, and then I can just left click and drag that triangle over to where I want it, so it's roughly in the right place. So the black arrow is the selection tool, and that allows you to select a whole object or a whole area of an object or a group of objects. The white arrow is the direct selection tool, and that allows you to select a direct point on your object. So here I'm going to choose this point here and click on it with the white arrow, and then I can just drag that point to the place I want it. Click and drag. And repeat that with all three. So click and drag. And that gives me the first shape for my pizza. I'm going to create another shape now to make this back end of the crust here. So this time I'm going to right click on the tools and choose Ellipse tool. And there's no options for this. If I just click, it will let me drag it out. Here, and there it is. And do the same thing again with the selection tool. So the black arrow to drag it into place and rotate it. And then the black arrow again just to keep it scaled up. So I've got two pieces of pizza here. Now, my next step, I need to join them together to make one whole shape. So I'm going to select them both, and I can do that by clicking on the first one, holding down Shift and clicking on the second, or I could just draw a box around both pieces and it will select both. And from there, if I look in the Properties menu, you'll see that the properties for the shapes have come up here. We'll look more closely at those later. Further down in the Properties menu, there's a Pathfinder tool. Pathfinders are just ways in which Illustrator will combine a shape for you using an algorithm. So there are various icons in here. We're just going to use the first one, which is Unite. If your Pathfinder tool isn't there, you can get it from Window Pathfinder. So I've got them both selected, and I'm going to click to Unite. And now I've got one solid shape that I can drag around by itself. So next I'm going to change the colour. So if I look here under Appearance, I can click on the colour palette icon here, and I can just choose a new colour for my pizza base. I can also choose to change the stroke colour or size by turning up or down here. And there are more variations on that again we'll look at later. The appearance, the colours for the colour palette are also over here in the toolbar and up here in the options bar. And they all work in the same way. They're all actually the same instruction. You have more control over things in the options bar and the properties than you do in the toolbar at the side. So we tend to use the properties menu for this. So we have the pizza base. Now we're going to skip the cheese and make some of the vegetables from underneath. So I'm just dragging over. I'm going to make my own set of toppings according to what I would like on my pizza. So I'm going to make some combinations. So 2 circles there. So choose the direct selection tool, and I'm just going to reshape using the points and these little handles here that allow you to drag and reshape as well. And then go to the fill tool and find a shape to fill. I'm hoping that looks quite mushroom-like. So that's my first piece of veg, and if I just select both parts using the black arrow, I can group those. Command G to group. And I can now select and move both my shapes simultaneously. I haven't used the Pathfinder tool on those because I don't want to lose the definition between the two parts of the shape. I want to keep them as two separate things. So there's my mushroom, and I'll try some salami, so an ellipse tool for that. Maybe lots of little ellipses. And some colour. Not very good at salami colours. So if you don't see anything you like in the colour palette, you can click on any colour. If you double click, it will bring up swatch options and you can find something more tailor-made. I can shift click to change several of these as well. Just going to change the outside colour there. Got the swatch options up here. I can just check preview and that will show me the colour working within my object there. Okay, let's go with OK. I'm going to select all of those bits, Command G to group. And then I'm just going to keep going through and making the different things that I would like as topping on my pizza. Okay, so I've made some toppings. Each one's grouped as its own shape. I'm just going to put the pizza base back by selecting it and dragging it. And now I'm going to put the toppings on and arrange those. So choose one, select and drag, resize it if I want. And then to make another one, I need to hold the Option key on the keyboard, or that's the Alt key if you have a Mac, if you have a Windows computer. So Option on a Mac, Alt on Windows. Hold it down. Get the little double arrow as you hover across the middle. Click and drag. And that will copy and paste. There's other ways to copy and paste, so I can Command C to copy, Command V to paste. So Option click, drag, or Command C, Command V. Okay, so that's the toppings on my pizza. Next I need to do the cheese, and we've skipped the cheese because I want to talk about layers. If we go back to the layers palette, you can see here you've got the reference layer, which is locked, and next to layer 2 there's a little arrow. I can drop that down, and in here you can see all the different layers of my pizza, so the mushroom groups there and the sweet corn type stuff, the olives, the green things, and so on. And I can turn those off and on in here so that you can see them or not see them, so show and hide. And I can show or hide these in here. And I can also order the layers. So at the moment the pizza base is on the bottom. If I selected that, I can drag that up to the top, and now it's covering everything. So the layers show up in layer order. What's at the bottom in the panel will be at the bottom of the object. We can change those, and we'll look at how to do that in a moment. So next I'm going to make the cheese, and I could do this with the paintbrush or with the pen tool, but we're just going to use the paintbrush for now. If I select that in the tools and go to properties, I can choose some parameters for my paintbrush. I can do that up here in the options bar as well. So I don't want to fill on this at the moment, so I'm just going to choose none for the fill, which is the white square with the red line through it. And turn the stroke up a bit so I can see it. And I'm also going to make it yellow because it's cheese. And here in the brush settings, I can choose from a whole range of brushes. I can use the library icon to have more in-depth brushes, but for now we're just going to use the basic brush that's already set. And come over to my pizza, and I'm literally going to brush around one continuous line where I want my cheese. I can make it a bit wiggly because it's like melted cheese, but I want to try and keep it as one continuous line so it ends up back at the beginning. And that's because Illustrator likes to fill shapes. If I haven't closed the shape, if I haven't come back to the beginning, it struggles to decide where to fill. So now if I select the path, I can go to fill and just choose my cheese colour, and it will fill in for me. So if I go back to the layers palette, you can see now more clearly that the cheese is on top of the vegetables. So I can send that backwards either by right clicking on it, choosing arrange and send backwards, but I'd have quite a lot of layers to go back through there. I can't go all the way to the back because it's not the bottom layer, because it's not the pizza base. So I'm going to do it in the layers palette. I'm just going to select my pizza cheese and drag it down so it's on top of the path. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is just using the brush tool again, just brush the drippy, melty bits of pizza on. Again, I'm going to do that freehand and join them up. select the shape and fill it with the cheese colour. And where I've got a bit of an overlap here because it's on the front, I'm just going to go back into the layers palette and drop it down so it's with the rest of the cheese. So if I now turn off the visibility for the reference layer, you can see I've got the whole pizza topped with cheese. So lastly, I'm going to just add some text to this. So over here in the toolbar we have the type tool. If I click over here on the board, it will just fill in some random text for me. And I can click on that and delete it and just add my own text in instead. If I highlight that now, I've got lots of control over the character type, so the font type, and the size. So I can find something like there, and there are loads of downloadable fonts, so we'll look at those another time as well. And I can change the colour. I could add a stroke around the outside if I wanted to as well. From there I can choose the warp tool envelope, which looks like a car windscreen and should be somewhere along the top of your options. And that's given me a warp and a whole load of options to change there. So, and there's lots of different parameters you can do there. If you check on preview, you'll be able to see what the effect is on your shape. So to save this file as an image that you can print out on paper or upload to the web or put in a document, you need to export it. File, export, export as, and then you can choose from a range of export parameters there, PNG, JPEG, TIFF, whatever you are using. I'll just give it a name, pizza.jpg, export. Say OK to that. If I want to use this again, so I want to keep all my layers intact and maybe come back in and work on it again at a later date, I need to save it as an Illustrator file, so save as. Give it a name, choose the location where you're going to save it to, and the format will be Adobe Illustrator. So I'll just say OK in the options. If I want to, for example, if the font I'd used was downloaded and not available on other computers, so I'd need to take it with the image, or the images were linked in some way to some other document, I would need to package the file. So File, Package, and give it a name, and it will collect all the links and the fonts and anything else that I have used together, put them in one package. So here on my desktop where I've saved to now, I have the JPG image that I can open in preview, which is cropped down to the size. I've got the original document, and I've got a folder that's got all the fonts, links and all the other bits in there.